Hello, everyone. It's a distinct honor for me to moderate this panel. We have stellar panelists who are leaders in their own right, running the largest of the conglomerates, complex of the agendas, most complex policy agenda in India on R&D, and we have Honorable Secretary joining us virtually. I hope Professor Jhunjhunwala is also connected. Sir, if you are, just announce yourself. No? Okay, maybe he's joining. I understand he is in a car being driven somewhere. He should be joining. In any case, let's get started. So the context of the discussion, and I really want to drill down on some issues which may be in everybody's mind, but somehow we at least on big stage don't talk about it. And let's take those issues head on. And that issue to my mind is, why don't our corporates invest in R&D? Numbers speak for themselves. You look at the gross expenditure in R&D. Year on year, the numbers are very low. We've been called a country of traders. We bring technology from outside. We do technology arbitrage. We have a big market. We sell, we make money, we are happy. The other thing we cherish a lot is our jugaad. People don't consider this as serious R&D or innovation. We make money. We get our problems solved in Ziffy. Our economy is growing. We are number 4. By inertia of our growth, we would be number 3 soon. But if you look at any metrics of R&D and innovation, I don't think we can really say we are world leaders. In few areas, few bright spots, but on an aggregate. The biggest effort, to my mind, we have seen in the last few years, and that's where I will invite Secretary Sir as well, who, kudos to his effort in academia, was invited to join the policymaking and lead from the front. Our RDI initiative was launched, and we have ANRF as a structure to make direct investments in R&D. To narrow down a bit of our focus and keep our discussion sharp, I'm going to pick a clean tech as a space and then come to ag as well, given we are talking climate. And the sectors are in agriculture for sure, solar, wind, EV, hydrogen, battery, and transmission equipment. And you can expand it to broader clean tech, which covers a lot of technologies, a lot of money. Welcome, Professor Jhunjhunwala. We've just started. I'm doing a bit of an introductory remarks to set the scene, and then I'll invite first Secretary Sir, then you and others. Secretary Sir, from your vantage point, the policy announcements have been made. We hear there are a lot of road shows happening to tell people what the opportunity is. But you've been on the other side of receiving funds, the painful journey of receiving fund as an academic sitting in IIT. Have you made the journey of receiving funds better now that you are on the other side of the table? Over to you.
So I think, let me just split this question into 2 parts. One is, of course, you talked about funding in academic research. So now the funding in academic research, is now being enabled, of course, through the DST, but also through ANRF, which has been one of the transformative initiatives. The ANRF was operationalized last year. So in ANRF, we have initiated a new kind of programmatic intervention where solution focused and outcome oriented research with multiple PIs, can be supported. And in that context, for example, we launched a program on the electric vehicles missions, which is now supporting, research in motors and drives, research in battery storage and materials, and also research in charging infrastructure. So I think that is one part. But the second uh, question that you mentioned about supporting the R&D in private sector. So I think in that context, therefore, this 1 lakh crore RDI fund is one of the very bold initiatives of the government, because so far, the Department of, whether it is Department of Science and Technology, or whether it was erstwhile SERB before ANRF, typically we have not funded the research in private sector and in the industry. The research has been funded only in the academic institutions and universities, but the research has not been funded in the private sector R&D. So RDI fund in that sense is one of that initiatives which has been launched to support the R&D, not just in the startups, not just in the deep tech startups, but also in established corporates and industry. So even if an established corporate or industry has a cutting edge R&D project, it can tap the RDI funding, which was earlier, of course, not there. So I think in that context, I should say that we are now having, two channels. One is the normal ANRF channel for supporting academic institutions and universities and research labs. And another one is the RDI fund to support, the private sector R&D. Of course, there are certain conditions in RDI. One of them is that the research has to be in one of the 6 sunrise sectors that have been identified. Energy and climate is, of course, one of the important sunrise sectors and relevant for the today's discussion. But Now, coming to your earlier question of whether the funding has been made easier from the academics point of view, all I can say is that we are making efforts to simplify. In June last year, we did make efforts in simplifying some of the provisions of the procurement policies that has been done, and also giving some flexibility in the general financial rules. So that is, I think, one initiative that we have taken. Of course, there are issues in terms of fund disbursal that we are addressing. But for the RDI fund, it was approved in the cabinet that the general financial rules will not be applicable, but the government will make liberalized special financial rules. So those special financial rules have been already approved by the Ministry of Finance. We will be notifying soon. So RDI fund will not operate under the government's the GFR rules. It will operate under the special financial rules. So hopefully, I think that will address the issue of quick fund disbursal and also other problems that typically the agencies who are receiving funds face.
Thank you for that, optimistic update, and hopefully this will streamline. Let me invite Professor Jhunjhunwala. I saw him bit of, giving a bit of a smile when you said for academics the funding has been streamlined a bit. But rather than getting him to respond on the academic, he's been one of the, I would say, the North Star when it comes to incubating startups. I visited ITEL. I was so impressed. He's incubated startups which are now, I think, to the tune of 60,000 crores in market cap, which have gone through that journey of innovation to scale. Sir, from your vantage point, what are the biggest constraints we need to tackle especially in the clean tech space, whether it's TRL 123 or 4 onwards, and bringing them more closer to the manufacturing space rather than just leaving at pilots. Over to you, Professor. So we can't hear you. You have to unmute, I guess.
Thank you very much. I'm very sorry that I'm not in Delhi. Would have loved to participate, got stuck somewhere. I will say that climate technologies are difficult technologies. They are very much needed, and we need to really work hard on getting that. But the key is R&D to commercialization. If we just do R&D and are not able to commercialize and scale, then I will say the impact is going to be limited. So we need a fairly different kind of approach. There are 3 things that I will talk about it. First thing is, these difficult technologies are not doable by individual scientists or scientist group in one institute, or probably even by one startup. What is needed is that multiple scientists located at different institutes to work together with multiple startups to make a difference. I can give you an example. For example, today I'm told that about 2,500 gigawatt hour of storage, battery storage will be needed in the next 6 to 7 years in India. If we are not to import everything, we need to be able to come up with technology which is equal in quality or better in quality and same cost as the imported things from China. Today, whole stock, even the container is being imported from China.
Yeah.
Now for that we need consortium approach, and my feeling is this consortium approach has to be done beyond educational institute or even one industry. It has to be done with consortium. ITEL, he mentioned, is a Section 8 company, non-profit company, which can take up efforts like this, and now we are trying to do several such things. I can take another example, power electronics. Everything we are importing today. How do we really make our own power electronics product and win? And for this, we need a little more flexibility. My feeling is, at the first level, 5% to risk money, which will neither come from the government nor will it come from venture capital. That 5 to 7%, because there is going to be a lot of failures, a lot of changes in approach before we win. After that, we can leverage probably 25% government funds and 50 to 60% venture capital funds. So this is the approach that is required, and we are hoping that RDI enables us to do that. They are still too caught up with educational institutes and established industry. They do not understand what does it take consortiums to succeed, and succeed from R&D to commercialization. But let me tell you that we are all determined. We need this very badly, and we cannot depend forever from outside the country, and we will get there. That's all that I can say in the beginning.
Thank you very much, Professor. And having been a part of the perovskite group you have established, I've seen the kind of energy and collaboration we need. With that, let me invite Vikram. You run, if I put the numbers together, maybe one of the largest, if not the largest conglomerate, Indian multinational, across sectors, across continents, across income groups where your products are sold. Give us your sense as a corporate leader. How do you invest in R&D? What's your approach?
So thank you very much. So first I'd like to change the narrative. So we're very proud that as a company UPL, we have more than 3,000 active patents around the world that are active in 140 countries that are causing sales. And we have 4,400 patents in filing. We spend a couple of thousand crores on research and development. And you can see it's actually feet on the ground. This is not academic research. This is actual research that helps in sales. When we are combining with climate, and I forgot to put it in my notes, but it just reminded me, that we in India at UPL are the world's #1 ESG company in the chemicals field. There is very few places that an Indian company is #1 in anything in India. But let me tell you, there's a company called UPL that's #1 on Green Index by Dow Jones, by Sustainalytics. And that's obviously happened because our team does R&D on how to handle energy, effluent, do what they call green reactions, clean reactions. So absolutely, I think there are gems in the country. For us, we see ourselves as a science and technology company that's done. So I thought I'd just change that. And I agree. There are other aspects where India is lacking. And I'd love to make one comment here. You see, we operate in so many countries that I've seen, and I've seen China transform very beautifully. And 25 years ago, Chinese research institutes and ours were similar. They changed only one thing, and I think this is very, very important, and I'll speak for a minute and I'll stop. They made sure that all R&D projects had to be aligned with industry. I'm sorry to say, I have here statistics of thousands of crores spent by our institutes, and I don't want to name them, and some institutes have taken 7,000 crores from the government and delivered 2 crores in joint ventures and fees. Another one has taken 3,400 crores from the government and given 71 lakhs. So we have this thing that you have to publish a paper to get promoted. You have to do something, we have to change that narrative. Now I know India में तो change कुछ होता नहीं है, तो मैं भोग रहा हूँ और चले जाऊँगा और ये continue होगा. But if industry is not part of R&D, you're not going to get. And another very important aspect, we have too much of research fraud in India. In India, we love saying, "Arey, sab kharab hai, sab bura hai, kutta ganda hai, industry ganda hai." Bas, we are beautiful people at criticizing everything. And then our researchers also will find. And a lot of it, let me tell you, is mischievous, foreign-funded activities. And again, I have papers there where somebody studied a foreign-funded NGO gave an Indian university 10 crores to do a study on milk. They found pesticide in milk and published it. And total bogus, when we asked for the data, total bogus. And then what happens? When we are trying to negotiate a trade deal to export our milk, and we are the world's largest producer of milk in the world and milk products, they said, "Dekho, tumhara doodh to ganda hai. तुम्हारे institute ने किया." And I can tell you, it was complete fraud. No GC analysis, no nothing. Finally, we really went after that guy. That guy came, touch my feet, sir, maaf kar lo na, maaf kar lo na. I said, "Kya maaf kar lo?" So what we need, really, and I'll stop after that, what we need is we need a complete Office of Research Integrity. If there's one thing that this conference takes back for a company that is the 3rd highest patent filer in India, that is #1 ranked in something, one homework agar aap karoge, to ye Office of Integrity kholo. Dusra kuch mat karo. Where somebody can evaluate what is the quality of the research. Baba, it is, and I can give many some examples where we love putting fear. We don't talk about hope. We don't talk about positive aspirations. So we need to change that narrative. Thank you.
Thank you, Vikram. And I think you have a very concrete suggestion. I'm sure Secretary is listening, and he would give it due consideration. With that, you talked about gems in India, and I would really venture to say Mirik is one of those gems. He could have easily enjoyed his time in RT Industries, but he started Spectrum. He's been working on R&D, and thanks to him and his colleagues, they were a great supporter of Bharat Climate Forum on R&D agenda. So, Mirik, give us your sense. What brings this passion, and give us a recommendation for others to follow.
So actually, good to see Vikram here. I'll also, because I wear my other hat of RT Industries as well, I'll mention something about our collaboration with UPL. To your point, I think For me, the climate issue is like the issue of scale, complexity, and nuance. And I think that combination is a very important problem to solve at the end of the day. And that's why a lot of the time and effort goes into that. But I think the important is how do you leverage the understanding of a large corporate. Again, we are not as large as UPL, but again, I think we have grown together jointly. We are a big supplier to them, and I think it's been a very powerful journey. And the whole point is, how do you leverage how R&D is done in a corporate, and then try to figure out, can the same methodology be looked at when you are working at the research level within academia? And some of the gaps are pretty glaring, right? So one of the things that we realized is what the industry wants and what the academia is giving, there's a big gap. Academia generally tends to give something which is, they say, I'll give you an example of a catalyst. Now, they may say that in one pass, the catalyst is giving 98% selectivity, and then they would want to give it to you. Now, what the industry would want is like 1,000 hours of testing, recycle study, effluent study, and that's a big list. And that's, I think, a gap where we feel to solve that gap, we need piloting and prototyping center, which sort of what Vikram mentioned are jointly owned by the industry and the academia. It's almost like a Section 8 sort of a situation, which I know Abhayji and the team, I know Shiv very well, and this whole new, yesterday only it was launched, Anusudan Translational Research and Innovation Initiative, which I am quite excited about, like building such translational centers where industry and academia come together to fill this critical gap, where industry is guiding it, but the output of that is such that industry, it's a business case is the output. The output is not necessarily anything else, it's a business case which the industry can then take decisions. And we have actually been closely working with Ashok sir also, and recently committed capital, because now we are a family office, we have that flexibility to do patient capital. You mentioned peroxide, so one of the researchers in IIT Bombay, Dinesh Kabra, who is working on peroxide solar panels, again we have funded them. But in all of this, that's the challenge. The ability to write bigger checks in India is also a problem. Family offices can go to a certain extent, we can go 5 crore, 10 crore, but the 50 crore risk capital in India, unfortunately, is a gap, which unlike in the US, where there are companies who can get maybe $50 million of relatively high risk capital. That's again a bridge that needs to be built. So again, maybe taking from Vikram's book, if I were to say something, building of these translational facilities which are jointly owned or work within industry and academia, that's something that we are driving. And maybe the last example, RT and UPL announced a joint venture last year, which is an example of how both companies came together, collaborated on a technology which a third party modified their technology for the Indian context, first of a kind plant, and the product from that is going to help in sort of paints and coatings, which is an important aspect of reliability and things like that, which adds to the whole climate agenda. But important for large corporates to also collaborate, that's critical, otherwise that's a problem as well. So
Sure, no, thank you, and thanks for those specific examples from your investments and beyond. With that, let me invite Deepak Baglaji. You know, they're talking about patient capital, innovation, government money to be spent where others are not going. You run Atal Innovation Mission, you have the government checkbook. Tell us how much you can provide to Section 8 companies like ITL and others, or other incubators who want to go big.
Thanks, Ekjit. Let me first congratulate the secretary here. I think that's been an excellent initiative. And even the way they've structured the entire fund, the way it has gone, also the way they're doing the outreach. And I'll first pick up from there and I'll say, I think, Jagjit, let's just step back. The good thing, and I was hearing Vikram doing the amazing things, and really, that's one of the things which we look at as a gold standard, and make sure you as one of the younger teams coming up to do it. Let's step back and see we are a young nation. R&D, spend on R&D and innovation is actually a part of your economic development. And if you look at the world rankings, when you move from 81 to 39, which we've done, to a large extent, it's fairly unprecedented for countries of our economic strata and the shortage of time within which we've done it. And within that structure, if you see, you're very high on the creation of new infrastructure for R&D and innovation, and also on the policy side of it. That's where when I was congratulating the secretary. And the moment you bring the policy side of it, that is what made me to bring that we are now at a very interesting inflection point, which includes R&D, which includes our economic development, and which includes the real change of a person's life. Now let me take a point from where the professor left off. To my mind, and which is what we are trying to look at and how we can put our arms around it, one of the biggest challenges in the business of innovation and R&D is nobody speaks to each other.
Yes.
It's a world of islands. And please remember, success or development can never be a portrait. It has to be a landscape. And how is it that we can make all these stakeholders start speaking with each other? You know, in the old digital context, the more pixels you have in a picture, the clearer it gets. The entire objective, and this is how we are now trying to look at what we can do, because Atal Innovation Mission today, and I was very interested when I saw it, it's the largest innovation mission in the world. I was surprised. And I think me taking over got to know only after we took over. I don't think many of the people here would know about that. And all of us associated here, the secretary, in fact, is a part of the high-level committee which manages it. And Professor, you've been the one who's been a guiding angel to this entire idea and concept and execution. Now, from there on itself, from school to space is where the Atal Innovation Mission works. From looking at the incubation centers at schools, they've got 10,000 schools. They're going to be adding 50,000 more schools. Each of these is going to be a hub of innovation. They're also, if I would say, one of the largest funders of incubators in the world, over 100 incubators already, adding another 50, adding another 15 odd accelerators. And very interestingly, some of the very deep tech startups which you talk about were initially funded by the Atal Innovation Mission even 5 to 6 years ago, which are all up there. Now, if you look at the inflection point, and Vikram, you mentioned China. Look at the real spend of R&D in China, which took off at an inflection point. When was it? 2008, 2009. Mm-hmm. Now, let's see what it coincides with. From 2009 until 2018, China added $1 trillion to its GDP every year. You remember when I was making a correlation between R&D and economic development? The real spend of China in R&D and innovation started when they started adding that $1 trillion to their GDP every year. Now we are soon coming to that point. You've got your 4th trillion in 5 years. You'll get your 5th trillion in about 3.5 years. As I look at it, your 8th, 9th, 10th trillion on, you will be doing it in 1 year each. You're coming to that point, I would say somewhere around 2033, 34. So to be harsh on ourselves is good, because I think the good thing about India today is, and Vikram pointed that out, is we are extremely aspirational. We often forget that we may be an ancient civilization, but we are one of the youngest nations on the planet. And what you are wanting to do, so when you look at the West Coast startup movement, it started in 1950, 1960. And what you are trying to do is to evaluate yourself with them today with something which is already over 85, 90 years old. The learnings have been fast. We have leaders, which are all here. We see Professor, we have the Secretary, we have all of you sitting here. The interesting thing in our development, which you will see now happening, and that is a part of the fund which he talks about, and that is a part of, by the way, just think about it, we are one of the few countries of our size which is developing both digital infrastructure and physical infrastructure at the same time because we don't have a choice.
Yes.
Every other country in the world could have done it sequentially. The good thing of this is that it is creating a momentum for you, which is taking you to that inflection point. And the most interesting thing of what's happening here is, let's say, what the Secretary has done, which comes from the leadership on the top, which is you're bringing the private sector and the government together in partnership. And you are doing it much earlier in your cycle than many other countries did it later in the cycle. And by the way, when you talk about Jugaad, don't underestimate it. The strength
I was being deliberately provocative.
is, but I'll tell you, your new economic growth from now on, which is when 70 million of your MSMEs will adopt this innovation, will get into R&D, and that engine takes off. And the strength of that engine and the strength of India is one. It's not just Jugaad. It is a mindset. It's a mindset of getting things done, regardless of the resources available.
Yeah.
And when Professor told you that we will get it done, remind yourself, you've already reached here in one of the most economical consequences of getting technology, and you will take it forward in the fastest route possible.
Thank you. Thank you. So eloquent and clear. Vikram, you wanted to come in quickly.
So
please.
I wanted to quickly add, Deepak, there is a big difference between what China had to do in 2008 and what we have to do. And it's called AI and perplexity. So our learning window is disproportionately fast, and our cost for literature, for bringing our researchers up to mind, is now completely different. So 100% agree with you, but I think the context, our catch-up can be disproportionately fast because of AI. Thank you.
Thanks, Vikram. Let me go back to virtual guests. Professor, we're coming close to the end of this session, but I want to give you a minute to give your specific recommendations. What should corporate India do to move forward on R&D?
You are talking of Professor Jhunjhunwala or Professor Abhay Karandikar?
You, sir.
Professor.
I know.
Ah,
The senior professor, Professor Ashok Jhunjhunwala.
Okay. My feeling is that what I'm hearing in this panel is very, very good. If I believe industry, academia, and startups has to work together. Startups are willing to take tremendous amount of risk. I mean, take for example, the way Aether came about and from nowhere has established itself. Whereas if you look at even the established companies, which should have been far ahead in electric two-wheelers, have not done as well. My feeling is industry is at times very conservative. Of course, there are exceptions, and here on the panel we are seeing exceptions. But I believe it is industry, academia, and startups that need to come in. The government must open up some funding for such kind of consortiums. And they cannot just sit and say, oh, we will fund academia. Abhay is doing, he's trying his best. I know he's pushing hard. But the whole system still say, oh, IIT fund, a government-controlled institution we can fund. Anything which is not government-controlled, we'll have to be much more careful. They are pushing it, but I think they have to go far ahead. All that I'm saying that India very badly needs this, and we have good human resources, both in academia as well as in form of startups. Industry, I'm seeing, is increasingly very keen. We will make it. That's all I can say. We will do it. In the next 5-7 years, we'll see huge changes.
With you leading the charge, we have no doubt, sir. Secretary, sir, you have the final word, please, for the next 30 seconds or a minute.
I don't have the final word, but I 100% agree with all the panelists. I think, first of all, let me agree with this last observation which Professor Ashok Jhunjhunwala made, that we need to follow a consortia approach because large complex problems have to be solved in an interdisciplinary fashion comprising of academia, startups, and industry who can take the risk. And I also agree with Vikram Shroff's observation that in the today's context of AI, which is actually also changing the scientific discovery and technological development paradigms, No longer the scientific discoveries will be made based upon hypothesis, theory, experimentations, observations. You can actually disrupt that paradigm and make, quick disruptions in, for example, in materials discovery or in new drug discovery or, new tech. So in that sense, yes, it is true that we have to move very fast. But I think what Professor Junjunwala made the point, he gave the example of ether energy, but I can give you some 10 other deep tech startup example. For example, there is an Immuno Act which came out of IIT Bombay in CAR T cell therapy, and there are 100 other examples. The hope is that we have a very vast talent potentials which are working in the deep tech and cutting edge R&D. And if we play, and therefore I think we can speed it up and accelerate if we change our mindset to work collaboratively together with each other. And in terms of enabling framework, I think the government is committed to make an enabling frameworks. The political leadership is also fully aligned. But it takes time to make changes in the bureaucratic setup from the top to the bottom. But I'm hopeful and confident that this can be achieved and can be done in the coming years.
Thank you very much, sir. All strength to your chair, and we are concluding this session with a huge optimistic closure. We are almost through, and we're going to make it as far as we have to go to take India on a Viksit Bharat journey. Thank you very much to you both professors and colleagues at the stage. Thank you very much.